And, it was a really grave situation for me. I don't like that.
Yeah, and there are times where I feel somewhat wretched, that throughout the
We
day.
all do from time to time.
When the wind was blowing, it was kind of a wretched wind earlier.
It was. It was truly wretched.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome to the program Wretched here from Grave Robber. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
So we've got to, I got to ask straight away, influences. Because watching Grave Robber, I'm seeing everything from Alice Cooper, Guar. I'm seeing that in terms of the stage show, the presentation. So thinking that, we'll get to content in a moment, but just in terms of the presentation, stage show and stuff, what are your influences?
I would say our influences are, ABBA, Tiny Tim, Little River Band. No, of course not. Of course, we all grew up listening to Kiss and Alice Cooper and the Misfits. Yeah. So, the Ramones. So bands like that are strong influences of the band. But we're all fans of metal. We're all fans of punk rock. We're all fans of straight up rock and roll. And we kind of embrace all of those things.
So what led you to start a Christian band with Grave Robber?
Mild insanity. No. Well, the story goes like this. In 2003, the members of Grave Robber were all worship leaders at a church in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which, by the way, is the home of Christian rock. We have Petra. We can claim that.
Of course.
So, as fans of the Misfits, we were wishing so badly that there would be a Christian band that sounded like that, and of course there was one. The guys in my worship team looked at me and asked if we could start a band that sounded like that. And I said, guys, I really think that we should absolutely not do that. That is a terrible idea. And they pushed me a little bit further, and I said, okay, if we devote prayer to this band, and when the Reanimator says go, we will go. 2 years later, we had our first rehearsal in 2005. We walked into worship band rehearsal and discovered that all 5 of us had heard from him, and all 5 of us were given the green light. So we started rehearsing the following week. 2 weeks later, we were asked to open up for Dr. Chud from the Misfits, and it just took off from there.
So I'm sure that we're not the first people to ask this question, Wretched, but do you ever have people, parents, older Christians perhaps, maybe even younger Christians, who look at you guys and say, there is no way guys that look like that, with names like that, could possibly be honoring God?
Believe it or not, probably the most critical group for Grave Robber are youth group kids. Little old ladies totally get it, and they love us. Pastors understand where we're coming from. Usually new Christians understand where we're coming from, but youth group kids, they don't get it. And it's kind of funny to us, but at the same time, I really wish they would get it, because we've never once embraced man-made religion. We've always embraced the Reanimator himself. And part of our message to the world is that he is real, that he exists, that he wants a relationship with you. And oddly enough, we have that same exact message for the church.
Wow. Talk to us a little bit about your musical style, because there's obviously some serious chops in terms of your guys' instrumentals, your vocals. It's a wonderful sound. So talk to us a little bit where your sound fits in.
Well, I think it all formulates from the blueprint of the Misfits, the Ramones, and there's still some Kiss and just the things we grew up on, Alice Cooper, and again, it's just putting all of that in a blender. We're very conscious of tone, guitar tones, bass tones, making sure that the drums are tuned impeccably, because as a punk band, we've got two things. It needs to sound good sonically, and we need to be tight. If we don't have those, we've got nothing, because for a band like us, we don't have crazy guitar solos. We don't sing like Queen, even though we try to harmonize, we try to do our best. But for a band like us, it's about power, aggression, and writing songs that are kind of memorable and things that the audience can sing along to if they've never even heard us before.
Yeah, one of the things that is obvious when you see a Grave Robber show, and ladies and gentlemen, if you never have, we definitely recommend to do so, because you aren't going to your typical concert. You are going to a theatrical performance that gets across a message you will not forget in the way that they do it. Talk to us a little bit, Wretched, about rehearsal. How much does it add to a band's rehearsal what you do versus just going up there and playing songs?
There have been times in Grave Robber's history where we weren't able to rehearse, and we just called each other and said, well, bone up on the songs on your own, pun intended. And it doesn't work out that well. There's something about gelling together as a unit that only happens when you get in a room together. That's when the magic happens. So that's very important for us. As far as the theatrics that you mentioned, that's been something I admit we've worked on more during the whole COVID thing than actually rehearsing. So we're developing new props for the stage. We've developed new images that, like the cemetery gates on the drum set, and Satan's head that we can punch in the face, and all these, very theatrical things. Is it corny? Yeah, we don't care. We can get corny. It's fine.
So with your time with Grave Robber, what would be one highlight of, to this point, one highlight that you just look back on and say, that is why I do what I do?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the first time we headlined the underground stage at Cornerstone, and they estimated that 2,500 people were trying to get into the tent. I say trying because people were standing outside of the tent. It was an enormous group of people. And in the middle of the set, well, actually toward the end of the set, a guy walked through the mosh pit, just walked straight up to the stage, and I was talking to the audience in between songs, and he yelled out, "I need Jesus." Okay, well, how do I lead him in a prayer in that environment, in that moment? I'll tell you how. Obedience. You just do it. So the show stopped, and I led him in a prayer. That was it. So if there's any moment that was great, it was that.
Wow. So what's on deck right now for Grave Robber? Any particular projects you're in the middle of, or things you're looking toward in the near future?
Right now, we're working on a series of videos with a filmographer named Jason West, who was a student of George A. Romero. And these videos look like horror films. They look amazing. So we're putting those together. It's going to be a trilogy of videos, all three videos together on a DVD, and they'll flow together seamlessly like a creep show movie. And we're working on that. And those, are starting to look amazing. We're beginning to write for our next record, which we don't have any title or anything, but we're hoping to have a new record out by October of 2021. Other than that, we're gearing up to go to Mexico on the Warning Tour, which will happen in November, as long as we can still travel.
So I must ask, you mentioned about starting in the area that pretty much started Christian rock with Petra. Did the name Grave Robber happen to come from Petra's famous song Grave Robber?
I want to tell you The band is 15 years old, and you were the first person to bring that up in 15 years. The answer is yes. That was my favorite Petra song.
Absolutely.
And I love the idea that the Reanimator is the grave robber. People look at the band and say, that's grave robber. No, we are not grave robber. He is the grave robber. And we 1,000% ripped that off of Petra.
That is great, sir. So before we go here real quick, the name Wretched, where'd that come from?
Romans 7:24. O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?
This has been great. I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to thank you for joining us on this podcast. And we'll look forward for more things to come from Wretched and Grave Robber in the future.
Thank you for having me. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
All right, we are here once again live from the Kingdom Come Festival, and with us now is HB Bob, short for Headbanger Bob. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Doing well. It had been a while since I'd been to a festival. Last year I couldn't make it. Been to the hospital. I'd forgotten how close to feeling like you're in heaven this is. I think if Jesus was alive today, he would say the kingdom of heaven is like a Christian metal fest.
Okay, we are using that as a tagline on the show. The Kingdom of Heaven would be like a Christian metal fest. Can you explain why you think that?
Well, many years ago, I started going to Cornerstone Fest, like about the second or third one. I was going for the music, and then I got going for the seminars. But then it became about the family feeling, the family relationship, and the love that's expressed. I think these festivals are as close as you're going to come to the kingdom of heaven on earth.
That is cool.
Yeah, very. That's incredible. So, how long, say again, you've mentioned to us before, how long have you been going to festivals and Christian concerts like this?
I'm not sure how long. Christian concerts, I think before I found out about Cornerstone Fest, I missed the first one or two of those. I went to every other one. There were like 29 of them. Every other one except for the first one when they moved from Grays Lake to Bushnell. I missed that year. And my kids went with the youth group that year, so I had representatives. And then audio feed the first 4 years. Last year, I think it was the fifth year, I believe. I was in the hospital and missed that one. So.
Okay. Now you were telling me you've seen a lot of different bands. This is going to be an impossible question, I know. Give us one or two that maybe would be in your top two or three.
One thing I was mentioning with you guys earlier, an old Christian rock band named Servants, excellent lyrics, excellent stage show, blood good, because at one point I was getting out of balance saying, when I felt I love death metal, I started at one point to say, if you can understand the lyrics, what's the point? And then I listened to one of my old blood good CDs and I went, oh, that's why. And then when I was talking to one of the guys here earlier, One Bad Pig, another band with good message, and just fun, excellent stage show.
Yeah. Now, this is obviously an audio show, so our listeners are not going to be able to get to see what you're wearing. But you have a magnificent top hat on your head that is tricked out with red and black and purple and fuchsia feathers and so forth. So tell us a little bit, why are you wearing such a cool hat, other than the fact it's just a cool hat?
One thing, when I started going to Cornerstone Fest, I am still pretty shy, but I've learned to hide it. God's brought me out of my shell a lot. In the first few years, I kind of wandered around wishing somebody would come up and talk to me. One of the things, I like the style. I saw this hat, fell in love with it, but one of the other things, it is a great icebreaker, a great conversation starter. A lot of people look at me and say, I love the hat, and then I can say hi, welcome them to the festival. It's their first time. I want to make them feel welcome.
Yeah.
Great. So You talked about your top 2 bands and so forth. What would you say would be if you had to choose one of your favorite experiences at a festival, what would that be?
Sitting with Glenn Kaiser one time at the